Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center. Today's video, we're focusing on the top 10 knife designers here at the Knife Center. Let's check them out. All right, so to narrow this list down today, and in order to keep it more current rather than being bogged down by tons of past years, we're focusing on sales since the beginning of last year. Kind of keeps it in a nice range. We've got enough time there to really establish some patterns. And we're talking about custom designers who license their stuff to companies too. For the purposes of this, we're excluding stuff like the in-house stuff. Think of like the Glessers for Spyderco. Obviously they sell a ton of stuff, or we sell a ton of their things here. And stuff like Al Buck for the original Buck 110, still a perennial bestseller. But that's kind of not in the spirit of what we were aiming for with this video. But here we go. We've got the top 10, starting with Mr. Mel Pardue. And in sort of his honor, I had to bring out my old school Griptilian. This is kind of one of my first quality full-size knives that I bought, or at least ones that I look back on now and go, yeah, that was a turning point in some of my collection. It's the Griptilian. Most of the reason he's on this list today is still primarily on the backs of this American-made model right here. Nowadays they come with an S30V blade, about 3.5 inches. This is my old one with a little dust and stuff on it in 154 cm. Still an awesome, reliable knife. Started out back in the day with 440C, believe it or not. A few different blade shapes. There's this drop point, as well as a modified sheep's foot. The Tonto, however, I think is discontinued at this point. But 110 bucks or thereabouts for the full-sized models right now, which is a lot of utility for your dollar. Now the handles are just a simple injection molded style, closed here on the back, but you've got the thing everybody loves, Benchmade's Axis lock. This is the knife that made me a fan in crossbar locks in general, and why I'm still so married to this lock type today. It's just fantastic. It's ambidextrous. You can keep your fingers out of the path of the blade. You can flick it like I just showed you there. Now the handles on these Griptilians has always been a high point as well. In addition to having shape because of the kind of neutral elliptical nature that works with a lot of different hand sizes, you also get to see one of the advantages that injection molding can bring to the table, in that you can do a very kind of sophisticated or complex shape without a lot of machining. And it really is the case here. It's perfect for my hand, certainly. The grip and the nature certainly comes into play, but you've got some curves and cutaways and slopes in the right places. The handle's got a little bit of that inverted egg shape that I like so much, especially on some good fixed blades. And this is a knife that does everything pretty well. Day-to-day utility, some tactical uses, even some outdoor stuff. It just does it all quite well. And if you don't like this size, there's even a mini that comes in under 3 inches. Now I want to show you at least 2 knives from all of these designers. So the next one is another Benchmade. It is the Stimulus Auto. Comes in about 187 these days. This guy, blade is 154 cm. It's about 3 inches. And you've got a nice, sleek, kind of classically shaped side opening automatic here. You've got aluminum handles, push button activation, and a safety there on the spine. Slid forward, that's not going to open. Slide it back, push the button, and it opens quite nicely. Now, despite the grind, this is a single-edged knife, obviously intended more for like tactical uses or self-defense uses, because you do have, even though you don't have that sharpened rear edge, you do have the broad flat grind there leading towards that back edge. So it does a couple of things. Your tip gets a little finer, but it relieves a point of stress along, or it relieves a potential point of drag, I should say, along that back spine. Since you're essentially dealing with a thin diamond-shaped cross-section, that also works really well for EDC stuff as well, especially cutting through things on a curve. You're going to be able to slide through things quite nicely. But overall, this is another of Pardue's designs. It is very nicely done, but when it comes to Pardue and why he's on this list, it's definitely all about that Griptilian. All right, coming in at number 9 is Alan Elishewitz, and I gotta show something that's very Elishewitz in nature to start things off, and that is the Hogue X5 flipper, the 4-inch version, coming in at about 220 bucks right now. For that, you're getting a CPM 154 blade with this kind of harpoon-styled spear point, 4 inches, nice and broad. There's a crazy-looking modified Wharncliffe on this knife as well. Aluminum handles with G-Mascus inlays on both sides. And the lines of this really scream signature Elishewitz style. And it also has the button lock, which is something that Alan's been very closely associated with. He does a lot of button lock style knives on his customs, and Hogue does an extremely good job with their button lock here as well. You do get a secondary safety. It doesn't work when it's closed, but when you flip that open, which you could hear, it flips open quite nicely. If you're the type of person that worries you might accidentally disengage the button, you do have that lock to keep that button from being pressed, so it's just a little extra peace of mind. Now, in my mind, this is not necessarily the most comfortable knife to hold, especially in terms of harder use. The handle's a little bit angular, but it does kind of point the blade in a natural direction that feels pretty good. But overall, if what you're really after is something with the vibes of the true Elishewitz customs, this is absolutely the place to look. Biggest hit though for him, at least in these last couple years, has definitely been the Hogue Deca. Comes in about 140 bucks for the base model, and you've got an awesome level of equipment here for those dollars. This is actually based on one of his customs as well, with a much larger blade, about 3 3/4 or almost 4, if I'm remembering correctly. This guy is sized down a little bit to make a great EDC. 3 1/4 inches, 20 CV steel with a stone-washed finish or black-coated in this clip point shape or modified Wharncliffe as well. And the blades are nice and thin, and the edges, Hogue always does a phenomenal job with those guys. They are razor sharp from the factory and very highly refined. You've also got G10 for the handles. These are our KnifeCenter exclusive red G-Mascus on this knife, and Hogue's version of the crossbar lock, which they call the Able lock, which Benchmade has always done a really good job on their axis lock, but there's something about Hogue's that's just a little bit smoother, maybe just a little bit nicer. Again, not taking anything away from any of the competition, but Hogue's just happens to be really, really good. All right, coming in at number 8 is Warren Osborne, mostly on the backs of, you guessed it, the 940 series from Benchmade. Definitely got a bit of a boost this last year and this last year with the release of the mini 940, the 945 series. But even so, this is a perennial excellent seller for us here. And it's a cool range too. You get a lot of different personalities within the 940 range, from the classic green aluminum version, makes kind of a nice, kind of off-kilter gentlemanly version. You've got upgraded versions with S90V and carbon steel. You've got the more workhorse versions like this with G10 and an S30V blade coming in about $175. These have always had a good amount of blade reach given the narrow handle. We're about 3.4 inches. Got that axis lock again. And you can see they're folded up. A very, very easy knife to carry with you every day. Doesn't take up a ton of space, but you've still got a very comfortable handle, a very work-friendly handle for whatever you're gonna need day to day. Another one of his excellent knife series, maybe slightly less celebrated than the 940 series, is Benchmade's Barrage series. Both this mini with a 3-inch blade and the larger full-size version as well, which of course has that axis lock, but these are assisted opening axis lock. So you just open that slightly by pushing the thumb stud out, and that spring is gonna grab it and take over quite nicely. Price on this version is about $131 with that synthetic handles here as well, but there are some upgraded versions available. And the sizes are very similar to the small and large Griptilian series, but the blade shape is gonna be even a little bit better for slicing efficiency. You've got a slightly wider blade with a higher flat grind going on. So again, you get a little bit more out of your slice. One of the cool things about this mini, I think, is for a 3-inch blade, you get a pretty decent amount of grip in the handle. It means you can kind of push into it a little bit harder. You've even got, like that Hogue from earlier, a secondary safety here on the spine, so you get that ambidextrous quality. That works when the blade is open or closed as well. Really nice design. The only bad thing about Warren Osborne is he's no longer with us. It's kind of unfortunate for a host of reasons, but For you and me who didn't get the pleasure to know him personally, we're not going to be seeing more great designs from him either. Next up is relative newcomer to the scene, and that's Richard Rogers, whose CEO design absolutely exploded when it was released. And it's kind of pretty easy to see why. It's this nice $40 executive knife, blade just over 3 inches. You've got an 8CR series stainless, and you've got GFN handles that have a nice carbon fiber-esque sheen to them because of the pattern that's milled into it. But this was such a hit because of these narrow proportions, both when open and when folded up. It's, again, kind of like that 940, but even more so, very easy to take with you day to day. Not a heavy cutter, more of a light to light medium duty uses overall. But that's what most of us really need a knife for nowadays anyway, at least a very high proportion of people who are our customers here. Not much more to say. Like it's just a hit. It spawned a lot of spin-offs. There's a new flipper version right now that maintains this great price point with even more friendly action, and it kind of encapsulates a bit of Richard Rogers' style. He's into these narrow, clean designs, and one of his new ones that we are really excited about is the symmetry. Again, a little bit wider here, but you can definitely tell there's a little bit of DNA shared with that CEO. Price on this is $39. Blade itself about 2 3/4, so you're under that 3-inch length. 8CR series stainless again, and this is a non-locking folder. It uses the detent joint style of mechanism in that you've got arms with detent balls on either side, so it's not quite a slip joint in the traditional sense. But what's nice about this is makers are finding ways to turn that detent joint into fidget-friendly knives. Like you can still flip this knife open, either with the standard flick or even front flipper style. This is great for folks who maybe can't carry a locking knife somewhere or just happen to like the simplicity of it. And again, nice and gentlemanly. You've got that carbon fiber texture milled in to the GFN, some nice blue accents, and just an overall very pleasing and clean profile. Now, coming in at number 6 is Lucas Burnley, and we absolutely have to talk about first the Quaken that he made, that he designed and licensed to Boker. This particular version coming in about $172. It's one of the fancier titanium options, but there are a ton of different versions of this knife across the lineup for Boker nowadays. There's flippers like this, there's standard thumb openers, there's fixed blades, and even automatics, both side opening and out the fronts nowadays. Highly, highly influential design. Probably safe to say that the Quaken craze that kind of took the knife world by storm a few years back would not have been the same without Lucas Burnley. And even through to today, it's pretty clear to me at least, seeing the kind of Quaken influences in that CEO we just looked at. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. You've got the heavier duty thing here with this particular one, and just kind of the classiness inherent to that shape with that CEO as well. Now, it's kind of amusing to me a little bit anyway that Burnley has been so successful with this Quaken design, because to me it's not as representative as his style or of his signature style as some of the other things in his repertoire. So for that, I'm going to show you this, which is the MKM Arvinus, which it definitely has Burnley's propensity for clean, flowing lines that you don't see to the same degree in that Quaken. It's also, I think, one of my favorite designs of his period, and probably my favorite design that MKM puts together nowadays as well. I love the cleanliness and refined shape profile of this knife. Now, these start at about $209 for the G10 liner lock versions that come with anodized aluminum inlays. The red one, I think, is especially cool. This version here is upgraded a bit. Comes in about $334. You've got that marbled carbon fiber on the front and a titanium inlay rather than aluminum, and a frame lock on the back, not a liner lock with G10. Milled pocket clip, M390 blade, about 3.35 inches. I love a drop point, and I love this drop point in particular. It is like a perfect shape, great for EDC. You've got that almost, actually full flat grind by the time you get out to here, and a nice crown spine running along the top. So it's very comfortable, and it's very nice to look at as well. The whole knife is just beautiful, and it's gonna be a hard worker too. All right, coming in at number 5 was a little bit of a surprise to me, actually, and that's my friend Joe Flowers. And he does some designs for tops, but more than that, the reason he's on this list is because he has been extremely successful with his designs from Condor Tool and Knife. I forget the actual percentage, but I think it might be as high as like 80% of Condor's lineup is Joe Flowers designs. The one I like to recommend is this knife right here, the Pterosaur, because when it comes to a budget fixed blade full tang bushcraft knife, this is it for me. This is kind of full stop. And even though this is a fairly recent release from Condor, this is actually a design of Joe's that goes back many, many years. It started life being made by custom makers before finally kind of trickling down and being released as a budget-friendly option. I mean, $42.50 thereabouts, you get 1095 carbon steel, a length of just over 4 inches, a nice handle shape. It's accommodating, no hot spots to worry about. It works with a lot of different hand shapes and sizes, whether you've got really big mitts or smaller paws. You've got the full tang construction. You've got the tang even protruding there out the back, so you can use it for some scraping stuff. You've got the benefits of the Scandi grind for bushcraft uses, and you've even got a nice lightweight injection molded sheath here as I fumble with it to bring it out. It's ambidextrous, it'll work easily on either side of the body. It doesn't take up a ton of room. Not a whole lot bad I can say about this knife, so I won't. But it's a phenomenal design. However, when we're talking about Joe Flowers, we have to talk about machetes, because Joe Flowers, I think his middle name might be Machete. That may not be actually true. We'll check on that. But I didn't want to put it on the table because it's so big, so I had it off to the side, so it was a little bit of a surprise. Pick a machete in Condor's lineup, and there's a likelihood that Joe Flowers designed it. This is the Village Parang, comes in about 80 bucks. It's just phenomenal. You've got a nice chopping style blade. This is less of a thin grass slashing machete. You've got 1075 steel in this case, a nice convex grind, very, very sharp on the edge. And one of the materials that Condor likes to use a lot with their Central American hardwood handles. Nicely designed. You got a bulb here at the back for retention when chopping. And one of the cool things about Condor and Joe, the way they work together, is he'll look a lot to historical designs, to traditional native machete patterns, and put out their versions of it. Sometimes they're very, 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 very close to the originals. Other times Joe likes to put his own spin on some designs, but in any case, they almost universally come out phenomenal. They're also really good value too. I mean, the amount of steel and construction you're getting there is nice, and even the sheath on this is impressive considering a roughly $80 price point. Nice thick leather, you've got a couple of snaps. Joe's been known to say that Condor likes to use a whole half a cow every time they make a sheath because they don't skimp on the materials here. All right, coming in at number 4 is Jesper Voxnaes, and one of the cool things about Vox Designs is he's put on kind of a master class over how to take a few recurring themes and signature design elements and just tweak and stretch and reinterpret those into very distinct designs that are very clearly at the same time Voxes and very clearly show some of the same DNA. I mean, here's 2 of his more recent designs, completely different. The Pilar 3 from CRKT, this is the D2 version, which, pardon me while I check my price here, is about $50. And you've got the Viper Katla here at the bottom, this one at about $183. Very similar, but very different at the same time. And you see this time and again across Vox's landscape and across his design repertoire, I should say. It's a hard thing to pull off for even the best folks out there to create this instantly recognizable style that is so distinct and so interconnected between all his knives. I mean, you just got to appreciate that. But it's easy, of course, to see why folks like Vox designs, not just because they look good, but also their utility as well. This $50 D2 folder, the Pilar 3, is one of my favorites on the budget side of things. You've got this excellent modified Wharncliffe style of shape. I don't even know if we can call that a modified Wharncliffe anymore, but it's just under 3 inches. Great utility shape, D2 steel for the edge retention and the nice stonewashed finish. Brass accent here on the back spacer, and you've got ball bearings and a frame lock. G10 on the front, holds nicely, looks good, and it's going to work hard also. If your tastes run a little more premium, The Katla is another really nice new entry. 182, like I said, M390 in this case, about 3¼ inches. Got this subtle, this tanto shape here, but it's subtle. It's almost just a standard clip point. You don't have an abrupt transition point here at the leading edge of the tanto. So it's a good thing for folks like me who don't typically like tantos too much, but I do like this blade shape. You've got carbon fiber here, but there are other handles available. Inset liner lock, crown spine. This is an Italian knife after all. Copper on the back spacer. Ball bearings in the pivot. Nice flipping action. The fact that he puts out a lot of designs. I think maybe only second to Joe Flowers in the number of designs we have on our website. But you can get stuff all the way from the budget end of the spectrum to the ultra premium stuff, and you gotta love that too. The same could be said for number 3 spot, which is Rick Hinderer, and we're gonna start with the 393 GLCF from Zero Tolerance. This guy comes in at about $280. And while this may not be like the 5.62, which is based on probably Hinderer's signature knife, the XM18, this one's more based on the Eclipse, you do get one of his signature blade styles here, the Harpoon Sponto, and a 20 CV steel, heavy working finish, which is another Rick Hinderer staple, and you've got about 3½ inches to work with as well. As for the handles, we've got titanium and a carbon fiber inlay or onlay on both sides. Carbon fiber is actually glow in the dark as well. It's not gonna glow super bright for the longest amount of time, but it is pretty cool, and you don't always even have to look at it. During most day-to-day stuff, it's just some nice, pretty looking carbon fiber. Now ZT as a brand, I think did a lot to kind of elevate flipping knives to the next level, which is appropriate because I think Rick had a lot to do with the success of flippers over the years. Maybe not the initial surge, which we definitely have to attribute to Kit Carson, who actually came in number 11, just outside the top 10 list, still after all these years, on the backs of his M16 flippers. But in terms of the premium production flippers out there, it's really great to see Hinderer's name still in that upper echelon of designs. Now I did mention you could get some nice budget Hinderer designs out there, especially from Kershaw, ZT's sister brand. But also, I wanted to talk about the Hinderer CLS Rescue from Gerber. And that's because, you know, a big part of Rick Hinderer's story is the time he served as a firefighter and EMT. And a lot of the lessons he learned kind of on the job informed a lot of his custom knife design. And he has this very affordable rescue knife with the stuff he wants to be able to offer at a pretty reasonable price. These are about $66 right now, and these are actually one of his best sellers to this day because they work exceptionally well. And it works exceptionally well because it's designed to do a very specific task, and it really focuses on that. You've got a fairly standard blade shape here with a bit of a harpoon tip, but you've got partial serrations here. That's something that's going to be important to some folks who might need to be cutting something like a seat belt. Even without that, here at the back, we have a dedicated strap cutter, which is quite nice. Also on the back here, before I get back to the blade itself, you've got a glass breaker and an oxygen tank wrench built in here at the back. As we move further up the injection molded handle, there's a nice amount of grip here. The locking mechanism, it looks like a button lock, but essentially it's activating this liner lock here on the inside, or deactivating, I should say. Pull that back and you can rotate the blade closed, keeping your fingers out of the path and in the range of safety, which, especially on a knife that might be used when adrenaline's high and safety is going to be of the utmost importance, you're not going to have to be fighting your adrenaline dump to close this as safely as you would something that you might have to cross that blade path. Also, for folks in this line of work, you might be wearing a heavier pair of gloves for safety's sake. Nice oversized thumb studs here, so they're going to be very easy to get this open. This is just designed from tip to tail to be a knife that is reliable and ready to work. All right, coming in at number 2, just barely edging out Rick Hinderer actually, is Andrew Demko. And in addition to having a ton of success with a lot of cold steels lineup these last few years, has also been finding success on his own and has designed a lot of really innovative and really strong locking mechanisms over the years. Like the ram lock on his Pocket Bushman, the new shark lock on his AD20s, which are virtually impossible for us to even get our hands on nowadays. So until we do, I got to show some of his other locks today. And right now on the production side of things, shark lock accepted, kind of the flagship of his lock designs is the Scorpion lock, which you can see here on the Cold Steel AD-15. This particular version coming in about $216 right now. I'll get to the lock in a minute, but I'll talk about the rest of the knife first. S35 VN blade, excellent drop point shape. It's about 3.7 inches long, and it's a little bit thicker. They were going for some really high degrees of strength with this blade because you've got a lock that can back that up as well. Now, paired up with that S35 VN blade, you've got G10 handle scales, but there's a less expensive version as well with an injection molded scale that's same shape otherwise, and that comes with an AUS 10 blade. But at the heart of this knife is that Scorpion lock, which is right here at the back. It's essentially this metal yoke that interfaces with the tang of the blade, kind of similar to a classic lockback. And it has one of those things that I really, really appreciate about locking mechanisms that do it. Keeps the blade free when you move through without ever having to move your fingers in front of it. In addition to that, one-handed opening is of course very easy, as is closing. It's a little bit trickier than some, but it's easy to get the hang of, and you can even do some flicking once you're used to the motions a little bit. And the other cool thing about this, in addition to it being strong from the get-go, the harder you squeeze as you're pushing into something, the even more secure the lock is going to become because you're just pushing that yoke further into the tang as you cut. Now, the lock of his that's probably most famous and most prolific across the industry and across Cold Steel's lineup especially is the Triad lock. Looks like a lockback, but as I'm fond of saying, there's a lot more going on under the hood that makes this a lot stronger and a lot longer lasting than most lockbacks out there. But the changes they've made are so good that Cold Steel has for a long time advertised this as being the strongest lock on the market. It really does hold up very well, and thankfully you can see it across their lineup and across all kinds of different price points as well, from some of the real budget-oriented stuff all the way up to stuff that's like over $400, like the new 4MAX Elite and that sort of thing. This one is one of the more affordable, if not cheap, knives out there with it. This is the SR1 Lite, comes in just 60 bucks. And you're getting not just a nice robust lock, you're getting a robust blade too. It's an 8CR series stainless, so it's not a super steel by any stretch of the imagination, but it is fairly thick, and you've got a decent amount of toughness in the steel to begin with. Combined with that lock and the blade geometry, you've got a very, very hard-working knife for not much over $50. So this brings me to number one, and it was no surprise to me that it was Ken Onion. What did surprise me is that he absolutely blew everyone else out of the water, more than double the amount of Demkos sold in the last year and a half. And a lot of it comes down to some of his classic models. Some of the newer models, sure, but there's no denying that his Leek is a bona fide classic at this point that still manages to sell quite a few units every year. And it has one of the things we can thank Ken for, and that is the SpeedSafe assisted opening mechanism. And assisted opening probably wouldn't have been a thing, or at least nearly not the same kind of thing it was, without what Ken came up with. And especially in the days before the advent of ball bearings living in the pivots of knives, it's what allowed you to get a repeatable fast action on a flipper like this, especially one made in the USA that could be done affordably. This particular knife, even today, made in America, typically sells here for about 45 bucks. And the reason the Leek does so well still to this day is it happens to be just one of the all-time great EDC knives that works for a broad swath of people. It's not an overbuilt, hard-working knife. It is just a pocket knife, which, I don't know, there's something kind of refreshing about that. You still see it today with stuff maybe like that CEO, but a lot of knives, I don't know, maybe they try to reach too high, maybe not, maybe I'm just imagining things, but there's something still kind of refreshing about a knife that is just wanting to be a pocket knife. You've got a nice acute Wharncliffe blade here, Sandvik's 14C 28N steel, great stuff. A good roughly 3-inch length, nice slim to carry in the pocket, very easy. You've got frame lock or liner lock versions if you want some more color on those aluminum frames versus the stainless steel here. There's just something about the Leek, you can't deny it. But talking about the things Ken has come up with over the years, it didn't stop at just the speed safe. He's been constantly pushing and trying to create new things and new genres. And probably one of the most recent examples of that is now in its second generation, the field strip technology, which you can find on a bunch of CRKT's models, including this, which is the Bonafide, coming in about $100. And what's cool about these is, if you don't know already, what the field strip mechanism allows you to do is disassemble the knife with no tools. You just, when it's closed now, it can be done when it's open, but it's a little trickier and maybe not as safe, is you take this switch, push it up and forward, and once you do that, the knife comes very easily apart into 3 separate pieces. You've got ball bearings here in the pivot that are retained. They're not gonna fall out or slide anywhere. You've just got 3 very distinct pieces that are gonna be very easy to keep clean. That's kind of the reason this is such a good party trick. You can also get there and in there and lubricate things real easily if you'd like to. And then the reassembly process is just as easy. Lay the blade there in the track, press the top scale back in, push the switch back down, and the blade comes together perfectly centered, and the action is just as good as it was before. No adjustment or fine tuning necessary each time you do it. And the second generation with just that single switch is even easier to use than the first gen that had a switch by the pivot and a little thumb wheel at the back. Just a really, really nice party trick, maybe a little bit, but it's certainly one that has very good uses as well. Now for everyone else, I showed 2 knives here, but since Ken is number 1, he gets 3. And that's really good because neither of these 2 knives shows one of the other things that is kind of very signature to Ken's style, and that is his use of kind of these bodacious, broad, bold shapes. And you see a lot of that right here in the CRKT Motley. These are limited edition knives. They have been around for a little bit, priced right now at about $360. And you're getting an Italian-made knife in this case, unlike a lot of the Chinese imports from CRKT most of the time. The blade itself is Sleipner steel, big ol' 4 inches of it. Got that aggressive recurve going on, gives you even more sharpened edge within that 4-inch length. And you see kind of the shapes and the waves carried over into the handle and carried into these carbon fiber inlays on both sides. It's just a really nicely done, big ol' slab of Ken Onion. What's not to love? So that is it. That is our top 10 best-selling designers here at the Knife Center in recent history. Let me know what you thought. Let me know your favorite designs from these guys down below. Let me know your favorite designers. Maybe they didn't make the list. There were some really heavy hitters that finished right outside the top 10. I mentioned Kit Carson, for example. Ethan Becker was right behind him at number 12. So let me know. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. And if you want to get your hands on any of these knives or check out the other designs from these guys, we'll make sure to leave links to all of the designs from each of these designers down below. While you're over at the Knife Center, make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program too, so at least if you buy one of these knives today, you'll earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.